Okay. So we continuing with the 7 factors of awakening, and today I wanted to do a reading from Bhante Gunaratana's book, Four Foundations of Mindfulness. Of course, that's what we're discussing, is the 4th foundation of mindfulness, of which the factors of enlightenment are part of that. And this is a good general overview. Of course, it's got a bit of repetition of some of the things already read, but it, in my perspective, it pulls it all together quite nicely. Once when the Buddha was living at Rajagaha, the Venerable Mahakassapa, who was living in Pipali cave, became very ill. In the evening, the Buddha left his solitude to pay a visit to the Venerable Mahakassapa. After taking his seat, the Buddha said, "How is it with you, Kassapa? How are you bearing your illness? Are your pains decreasing?" Mahakassapa replied, "Lord, I am not bearing my illness well. My pain is very great, and it shows no sign of decreasing." Then the Buddha said, "Kassapa, I have taught 7 factors of enlightenment. When these factors are cultivated and carefully developed, they lead to realization and perfect wisdom. In other words, to Nibbana." What 7? The Buddha continued, "Mindfulness, investigation into phenomena, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity." Hearing these words, Kassapa rejoiced. "O Blessed One," he said, "these 7 are indeed factors of enlightenment. I welcome the utterance of the Worthy One." Then and there Mahakassapa rose from his sickness and his ailment vanished. I thought that was interesting, not just as a recap or telling a story, but in my memory, I didn't have, when he's asked, "How are you doing?" And Mahakassapa says, "Oh, crappy." Yeah, and that, it says, "Lord, I'm not bearing my illness well. My pain is very great, and it shows no signs of decreasing." This is a fully awakened Arahant who is foremost in many things, and particularly foremost in the ascetic practices. So he's not, unfamiliar with difficulty and
not a tenderfoot.
Huh?
He's not a tenderfoot.
He's not a tenderfoot, but that's how it was. So that reality of there are, even as an Arahant, you're going to experience difficulties, illness, and some of it's going to be in your control, and some of it isn't. That was the reality. It wasn't. I'm sure he wasn't. Being overly dramatic and going about with weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, sort of thing. But it was just that's how it was.
It's that first art. You can't escape that first art.
Yeah, and it's just knowing it as it is, and knowing it as an object of awareness, as opposed to picking it up as mine. Okay, so then Bhante Ji goes into his essay. The 7 factors of enlightenment are the qualities we need to achieve the goal of our practice. As our meditation deepens and the fetters subside, these 7 positive qualities arise in us. With mindfulness as their crown jewel, the 7 factors help us defeat the forces of delusion that disturb our concentration and delay our progress on the path to liberation. The suttas tell a number of stories like that of Mahakassapa, in which even hearing someone speak the names of the factors provides relief from pain, disease, and adversity. Once, when the Buddha himself was ill, the Venerable Mahachunda recited the names of the 7 factors, and the Buddha's grievous sickness disappeared. It is easy to memorize the list of the factors of enlightenment, and some people do, but it is not enough just to know what the factors are. We must understand the meaning of each factor and use our mindfulness to see when it is present, how it arises, and how to develop and maintain it. In Pali, the 7 factors are known as bojjhangas. The word comes from bodhi, meaning enlightenment, and anka, which means limb. The 7 factors we discuss in this chapter are the limbs, the arms and legs of enlightenment. Without them, we cannot walk the path to freedom from suffering. They arise in the same order for everyone. In fact, each marks a stage in our progress along the path. We cannot skip any stage because each develops naturally out of the one before. Let's look more closely at each factor. Mindfulness. Everything we have been discussing so far pertains to mindfulness. All progress on the path starts with this quality. As the Buddha said, mindfulness is the chief of all the dhammas. But in order for our mindfulness to become a factor leading to enlightenment, it has to be strong, focused, and specific. Here is how the Buddha describes this special kind of mindfulness. Bhikkhus, on whatever occasion a bhikkhu abides contemplating the body as a body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world, on that occasion unremitting mindfulness is established in him. On whatever occasion unremitting mindfulness is established in the bhikkhu, on that occasion the mindfulness enlightenment factor is aroused in him and he develops it. And by development, comes to fulfillment in him. What can we learn from these words? First, to become a factor of enlightenment, our mindfulness must have a clear focus, such as the body as a body. We can also focus on feelings, thoughts, or phenomena. These 4, of course, are the 4 foundations of mindfulness we have been considering. Next, we must be ardent and alert. That means that we meditate with effort and enthusiasm. Third, we must put aside covetousness and grief with reference to the world. In other words, we do not allow feelings and thoughts about ordinary day-to-day concerns to disturb our concentration. Actually, we should put aside greed and distress about the world all the time, not only when we are sitting on the cushion. Finally, our mindfulness must be unremitting. In other words, we must practice mindfulness all the time, not just while we are meditating. In fact, we should practice mindfulness during all activities, whether we are talking, eating, drinking, or waiting for the bus. Because of mindfulness, even ordinary activities are wholesome and beneficial. If we remember our mindfulness only occasionally, or practice it only during meditation sessions, it will take a very long time to develop to the level necessary to liberate us from the fetters. Mindfulness becomes a factor of enlightenment only when we are fully engaged in being mindful every waking moment. As we have been discussing, mindfulness requires a special kind of awareness. In each instant of mindfulness, we are conscious of the changing nature of everything that happens to us. We recognize that none of it can make us permanently happy. Most important, we understand that there is no permanent self or soul who is experiencing any of this. When mindfulness is established as our constant attitude, we discover that we have been practicing the 7 factors of enlightenment all along. When we meditate on mindfulness of the body as a body, we naturally use the factors of investigation: effort, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. The same is true when we meditate on mindfulness of feelings, thoughts, and phenomena. Our task now is to make our mindfulness even more steady and strong, so that mindfulness itself becomes the focus of our meditation. As we continue to meditate in this way, mindfulness becomes a factor of enlightenment and speeds our progress on the path toward liberation. Investigation. Wise people are inquisitive. Using our deeply cultivated mindfulness, we investigate the dhammas or phenomena in our own mind and body. Turning inward in this way happens naturally when the mindfulness factor is strong and clear. The focus of our investigation is the five aggregates. Our mindfulness inquires everywhere into our form, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. We see the arising of the breath, postures, clear comprehension, parts of the body, 4 elements, 108 types of feelings, 5 hindrances, 6 senses, and 10 fetters that arise depending on the senses and their objects. We see their disappearing nature. We investigate all of them with powerful mindfulness. How do we investigate? The process is the same for us as it was in the Buddha's time. We listen to the Dhamma, remember what we have heard, and then examine the meaning of the Dhamma we have learned. If anything is unclear or doubt arises, we ask questions. We think, we discuss. We focus our mindfulness on every aspect of our life and activities, on and off the cushion. For instance, when a thought arises, we investigate to see whether it is spiritually beneficial. We ask, does this thought reduce my greed and hatred or increase them? Does it minimize my confusion or add to it? Does it make me and others peaceful? If we discover that the thought increases greed, hatred, and delusion, and destroys peace and happiness, we ask, what can I do to eliminate it? If we discover that the thought is wholesome, we ask, what can I do to maintain it? Is my mindfulness sufficient? If not, how can I improve it? We use the same method to investigate the other aggregates. For instance, we inquire into our feelings by asking, am I attached to pleasant feelings? Do I reject unpleasant feelings? How many times have I been distracted from my mindfulness by desire for pleasant objects or hatred for unpleasant ones? We also investigate how well we understand essential Dhamma concepts, such as impermanence. We ask, does it occur to me that the body is mine? What makes me think that it is mine? Do I see that the body's parts and elements are always changing? Perhaps we discover that our understanding of impermanence is not very clear. We suspect that this confusion may be why the thought that the body is mine keeps coming back. As a result, we resolve, I will spend more time meditating on the body's impermanence. We also examine our everyday actions and attitudes. We ask, how many times have I gotten angry when somebody pointed out my faults? How many times have I enjoyed criticizing others? How many times have I taken pleasure in gossiping or quarreling? If we find that our actions and attitudes are healthy, we investigate how to maintain and strengthen them. If we find that they need to be improved, we figure out what to do to change them. As we can see from these examples, it is our job to make sure we understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness and apply this understanding to our meditation and our life. No one can do this hard work for us. We have to manage our own body, mind, and actions every moment of our waking life. No one can walk the path on our behalf. We use mindfulness and intelligent investigation to check whether what we are doing is holding us back or helping us move toward our spiritual goals. The attitude we should adopt is called come and see. Nobody has invited us to investigate the Dhamma. There's no place we have to go to engage in this investigation. And there is nothing we can see with our eyes. Rather, the truth of what we experience all the time invites our attention. This truth is called Dhamma. It invites us, saying, if you want to be free from trouble, look at me. As the sutta tells us, the Dhamma is directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, to be personally experienced by the wise. Maybe I'll stop there just to check and see any questions, or do it in bits, because it's, in fact, I could read the whole thing, but then it can feel like a jumble at the end. One of the things I notice is Bhante Ji's just beginning this last section on investigation, and just the kind of emphatic statement, wise people are inquisitive. And it's that sense of being inquisitive, checking, reflecting, considering.
I noticed we're circling around to a conversation with the heart.
Yes, yeah. Yes, yes.
Something Ajahn Pasanno said in a talk I was listening to recently on the 7 factors. This might be a ways out, but he mentions the 7 factors partaking in the path, but also partaking in the goal.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice yacht, like Samadhi's a nice yacht that's taking you to an even nicer island. And yacht's nice too, which is what he says.
Yeah, no, it's a good. What is it? There's a word for that, or a name for that in where the smaller fits into the bigger. Scale invariance, thank you. I keep forgetting that. Okay. Next is energy. As we continue our investigation of the 5 aggregates, we become more and more interested in what we are doing. That interest arouses the energy to make even greater effort to stay the course. We experience enthusiasm along with the determination never to give up. This combination is the energy factor of enlightenment. A simple example illustrates how investigation arouses energy. When we watch with mindfulness and attention, anything we experience seems to follow a trajectory similar to the motion of a stone thrown into the air. The stone rises as strongly as the power we use to throw it. But as it moves upward, the rising energy reduces and the speed slows down. Eventually, the upward motion stops. Finally, the stone reverses course and falls to the ground. Seeing this, we become interested in checking to see whether every instant of feeling, thought, perception, and consciousness follows this pattern. This interest generates the determination to be even more mindful, and the energy factor leading to enlightenment develops within us. When mindfulness combines with the enlightenment factor of energy, we are increasingly able to use skillful effort to keep from getting caught in greed, hatred, and delusion. Skillful effort helps us distinguish between thoughts and feelings we should welcome and those we must avoid. When harmful impulses arise, we close the doors of our senses to suffocate them. Then we use effort to replace them with beneficial impulses such as generosity, loving friendliness, and wisdom. Because our energy is aroused, we are not lenient. We do not let down our guard for even an instant, as the sutta tells us, realizing that this body is as fragile as a clay pot, and fortifying this mind like a well-defended city. drive out delusion with the sword of wisdom. Until the final battle is won, we use energetic effort to safeguard, secure, and maintain what we have gained. But our energy is calm and focused, rather than hyper-intense. Skillful mindfulness, skillful investigation, and skillful effort work together like a well-trained team to purify the mind. We recognize that life is as brief as a flash of lightning. But there is still a chance to liberate ourselves from the cycle of suffering. As the Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, exclaimed with profound determination, "Let my blood dry up, my flesh wither away, my body be reduced to a skeleton. I will not give up what humanly can be attained." Joy. When the energy factor of enlightenment is strong, joy arises as a factor of deep concentration meditation. The stages of deep concentration meditation, called the jhanas, take us beyond the ordinary mindfulness that we have been talking about into a series of deeply tranquil, harmonious, and powerful states. As mentioned earlier, I describe the jhana states in detail in my book, Beyond Mindfulness in Plain English. As we progress through the successive stages of jhana, the 5 hindrances are put to sleep and the 10 fetters are neutralized, making our concentration even stronger. When the hindrance of ill will is overcome, our meditation becomes joyful. This emotion relaxes the body and mind, generating a feeling of serenity and peace. As our concentration deepens further, we experience 5 increasingly intense feelings of joy: minor joy, momentary joy, showering joy, uplifting joy, and all-pervading joy. Minor joy makes our body hair stand on end. Momentary joy is like lightning flashing, moment after moment. Showering joy descends on the body and then disappears, like waves breaking on the seashore. Uplifting joy is able to lift the physical body, actually to move it. A sutta tells the story of a young girl who aroused uplifting joy while contemplating the thought of a shrine. Carried by the uplifting joy, the girl traveled to the shrine through the air, arriving before her parents, who went there on foot. All-pervading joy suffuses every part of the body. It's important to keep in mind that the joy we experience in the initial stages of jhana is not the same as the pleasurable feelings of everyday life. And even within the jhana states, the joy that is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment arises only as a result of the development of 3 previous factors: mindfulness, investigation, and energy. Mindfulness combined with investigation shines light into dark areas of the mind. Energy drives our tireless effort to see reality as it is, removing additional obstacles to the attainment of enlightenment. As obstacles subside, the special kind of joy that is a factor of enlightenment arises in the mind. This joy is more durable than the joy that we experience in the initial stages of jhana. Because it comes from understanding, enlightenment joy never becomes weak or fades. When we reach this state, we remain joyful all the time. Tranquility. When enlightenment joy is developed and perfected, the factor of tranquility arises. Tranquility is a mental state in which the mind and body are calm, relaxed, and peaceful. There is no part of us that is not steady, still, and tranquil. Desire, grief, and delusion have disappeared. We feel satisfied, safe, and secure. We don't feel like moving the body, nor do we feel thirsty, hungry, tired, bored, or lazy. Everything is serene and perfect. Although we have not yet achieved the final goal of our practice, for the moment, we enjoy profound peace and happiness. Is there any questions on those factors, just in case? Yeah.
Do you have no advice on skillful means for developing joy, lightheartedness, more in general?
Yeah, I think one of the things is just like bringing to mind recollections of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Those are, to me, are really important basis of joy, because those are sort of because you want your joy to be based on something that has a kind of a foundation of purity, and of course with Dhamma, then it's aspects of, say, like relinquishment and giving and devotion. These are aspects that to me are aspects of giving. So that turning one's attention to that, and then finding aspects of there's classical ways of developing joy in terms of or developing a recollection of the Buddha by just bringing to mind Buddha images, like a peaceful, tranquil, joyful Buddha image. It's quite there's a sense of kind of joyful quality that comes to mind. So that using imagery, and that's why I think what comes to mind is like in Tibetan tradition, there's parts of meditation where they do offerings of mandalas, of making creating imagery and making offerings to the Triple Gem. And it's a very beautiful way to generate joy, where one is offering and making dedications for the well-being of oneself and all of the beings.
But I noticed with the talking with the heart, the conversation with the heart, it's all fitting. There's no like words or a conversation per se. It's more just like the heart's kind of a child and it's going wah, wah, wah. And you're like, what do you want? And it's just like wah. And like I try to feed it.
Yeah.
I try to reason with it. It's still wah. And at some point you just kind of have to.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. That is like that. Ajahn Pasanno story of Ajahn Sujito's meeting with his brother. If you try to reason, then you're not going to make a connection. So that one is much more giving attention to a much deeper level of connection. And our own kind of whining, fearful, alienated mental state. So you can't really. You use reasoning to a little bit, but that's not a particular lesson. You want to be finding imagery and doing things that are actually soothing. Next is concentration. In this state of joy and tranquility, concentration becomes noticeably stronger and more focused. In earlier stages of mindfulness meditation, our concentration is unsteady. Moments of clear focus alternate with moments in which we are aware of our internal dialogue and of sounds, smells, and other sense impressions. Increasingly, these distractions fade to the background, and we are able to concentrate exclusively on the breath or other objects for longer and longer periods. This improved ability to focus is called access concentration. It marks the boundary between ordinary meditation and the jhana states of deep concentration. As we progress through the stages of jhana, concentration becomes a factor of enlightenment. Using concentration as a powerful tool, we focus the mind like a laser beam on the 5 aggregates. Our concentration penetrates to the 3 universal characteristics of all conditioned things: the reality of constant change, the unsatisfactory nature of everything that exists, and the complete absence of a permanent self or soul. These characteristics are no longer a theory. We recognize them as essential truths. In jhana, mindfulness and concentration work together to dissolve all barriers to achieving realization. Equanimity. Equanimity is like the center point on an old-fashioned balance scale. On one side of the scale, we place a heap of rice. On the other side, we place a metal weight. We adjust the quantity of rice until the pointer on the scale is exactly perpendicular. Then we know that we have the correct measurement. This balancing point is equanimity. In the states of jhana, we use equanimity like a balance scale to fine-tune our cultivation of the other enlightenment factors. If we find that the mind is sluggish, we intensify our mindfulness and investigation in order to rouse our energy and restore balance. If the mind is overexcited, we focus on increasing our joy, tranquility, and concentration so that we become more calm. The equanimity that we experience in the jhana states differs from the type we use in mindfulness meditation to balance harmful and beneficial feelings. Equanimity based on sensual objects, form, sound, smell, taste, and touches, is called equanimity based on diversity. In the jhana states, the equanimity that arises as a factor of enlightenment is called equanimity based on unity, because it focuses on a single internal object. At this late stage of the path, all of the components of the body and mind, 5 aggregates in the past, present, and future, are exactly the same. There is no such thing as good, bad, or indifferent. It is all simple reality, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless. In this state of perfect balance, the sutta tells us, clinging to the material things of the world ceases utterly without remainder. Key points for developing concentration. The concentration that arises in the jhana states as a factor of enlightenment develops out of the concentration you begin to cultivate the very first time you sit down to meditate. Concentration is like a muscle that strengthens as you exercise it. Here are some ways to build concentration to support every step in your practice of mindfulness. First, make sure that your concentration is wholesome and free of hindrances, such as greed, hatred, and delusion. For instance, concentration motivated by greed for advanced states so that you can travel through the air is not wholesome. Use skillful effort to put aside feelings and thoughts about ordinary day-to-day concerns. Remind yourself that life is as brief as a flash of lightning. Resolve to use this session of meditation to liberate yourself from the cycle of suffering. Focus your mind on your chosen object of meditation, such as the breath, postures, parts of the body, 4 elements, 3 types of feeling, 5 hindrances, or 10 fetters. Keep your mind in the present moment. Use unremitting effort to maintain focus on your chosen subject. If you find that your mind has wandered from your object, gently but firmly bring it back. Be ardent and alert. If you find that your mind is sluggish or sleepy, use effort to arouse enthusiasm. If you find that your mind is overexcited or jumpy, focus on your breathing until it calms down. Be especially alert for any of the 5 hindrances: desire, hatred, worry, laziness, and doubt. If any hindrance is present, cultivate its opposite. For instance, overcome greed with thoughts of generosity, and hatred with thoughts of loving friendliness. Once the hindrance is gone, refocus the mind on your chosen object. Your goal is to use concentration as a powerful tool to penetrate to the 3 universal characteristics of every experience: constant change, the unsatisfactory nature of all conditioned things, and the absence of a permanent self or soul that is aware of any of this. As your concentration deepens, the mind gradually loses interest in other things and is able to focus on the object of meditation for longer and longer periods. At this point, you should not investigate the details of your experience. Simply focus mindfully on your chosen object. Each time you practice wholesome concentration, it is easier to maintain your focus. No matter how briefly you are able to concentrate, you should feel happy about what you have accomplished. Working together as a team, concentration and mindfulness purify the mind and help keep the hindrances suppressed. Concentration helps you gain first-hand experience of the truth of the Buddha's message. This motivates you to develop more profound states of concentration so that you can attain deeper insights. So that's Bhante Ji's chapter on the factors of enlightenment. Any questions, comments? As I said, I thought it was a general overview. It's good to sort of go back and refresh ourselves what it all was. Okay, the next I want to read a sutta from the Bojjhanga Samyutta, which is Samyutta 46, and this is Sutta number 6, Kundalya. And this is sort of like a good overview of the whole path of training, but it also shows how the 7 factors of enlightenment actually factor in. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Saketa in a deer park at the Anjana Grove. Then the wanderer Kundalya approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Blessed One, Master Gotama, I am one who stays around monastic parks and frequents assemblies. After the meal, when I have finished my breakfast, it is my custom to roam and wander from park to park, from garden to garden. There I see some ascetics and Brahmins engaged in discussion for the benefits of rescuing their own theses in debate and condemning the theses of others. But what is the benefit that Master Gotama lives for? Kundalaya, the Tathagata lives for the benefit and fruit of true knowledge and liberation. But, Master Gotama, what things, when developed and cultivated, fulfill true knowledge and liberation? The 7 factors of enlightenment, Kundalaya, when developed and cultivated, fulfill true knowledge and liberation. But, Master Gotama, what things, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment? The 4 establishments of mindfulness, Kundalaya, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment. But, Master Gotama, what things, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 4 establishments of mindfulness? The 3 kinds of good conduct, Kundalaya, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 4 establishments of mindfulness. But, Master Gotama, what things, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 3 kinds of good conduct? Restraint of the sense faculties, Kundalaya, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the 3 kinds of good conduct. And how, Kundalaya, is restraint of the sense faculties developed and cultivated so that it fulfills the 3 kinds of good conduct? Here, Kundalaya, having seen an agreeable form with the eye, a bhikkhu does not long for it, or become excited by it, or generate lust for it. His body is steady and his mind is steady, inwardly well composed and well liberated. But having seen a disagreeable form with the eye, he is not dismayed by it, not daunted, not dejected, without ill will. His body is steady and his mind is steady, inwardly well composed and well liberated. Further, Kundalaya, having heard an agreeable sound with the ear, having smelt an agreeable odor with the nose, having savored an agreeable taste with the tongue, having felt an agreeable tactile object with the body, having cognized an agreeable mental phenomena with the mind, a bhikkhu does not long for it, or become excited by it, or generate lust for it. But having cognized a disagreeable mental phenomena with the mind, he is not dismayed by it, not daunted, not dejected, without ill will. His body is steady and his mind is steady, inwardly well composed and well liberated. When, Kundalaya, after he has seen a form with the eye, a bhikkhu's body is steady and his mind is steady, inwardly well composed and well liberated in regard to both agreeable and disagreeable forms. When, after he has heard a sound with the ear, smelt an odor with the nose, savored a taste with the tongue, felt a tactile object with the body, cognized a mental phenomena with the mind, a bhikkhu's body is steady and his mind is steady, inwardly well composed and well liberated in regard to both agreeable and disagreeable mental phenomena. Then his restraint of the sense faculties has been developed and cultivated in such a way that it fulfills the 3 kinds of good conduct. And how, Kundalaya, are the 3 kinds of good conduct developed and cultivated so that they fulfill the 4 establishments of mindfulness? Here, Kundalaya, having abandoned bodily misconduct, a bhikkhu develops good bodily conduct. Having abandoned verbal misconduct, he develops good verbal conduct. Having abandoned mental misconduct, he develops good mental conduct. It is in this way that the 3 kinds of good conduct are developed and cultivated so that they fulfill the 4 establishments of mindfulness. And how, Kundalya, are the four establishments of mindfulness developed and cultivated so that they fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment? Here, Kundalya, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind, phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. It is in this way that the 4 establishments of mindfulness are developed and cultivated so that they fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment. And how, Kundalya, are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they fulfill true knowledge and liberation? Here, Kundalya, a bhikkhu develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, maturing in release. He develops the enlightenment factor of course, investigation of states, of energy, of joy, of tranquility, of concentration. He develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, maturing in release. It is in this way that the 7 factors of enlightenment are developed and cultivated so that they fulfill true knowledge and liberation. When this was said, the wanderer Kundalya said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama." The Dhamma has been made clear in many ways by Master Gotama, as though he were turning upright what had been turned upside down, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who is lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go for refuge to Master Gotama and to the Dhamma and to the Bhikkhu Sangha. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So that, of course, that sense of the whole path and integrated nature of the path, but then also the factors of awakening explained in a way, but each factor relying on seclusion, dispassion, cessation, maturing in release. Viveka, viraga, nirodha, vosaka. So those are a set of factors that come up in many places in the suttas and are well worth remembering and recollecting and bringing to mind as key factors in practice and training. Vosaka, when we say maturing, release, it's a relinquishment, letting go. Vosaka. It's similar to, the word is very similar to like in the Anapanasati Sutta, Pati Nisarga, which is the last one.
I kind of have an ulterior motive in asking this because I was just looking for this sutta personally, but it's similar to like Anapanasati talking to the ascetics in the park, and they're telling the different stances of the world's eternal, the world's not eternal, but there's that phrasing, the higher escape. Is that similar to the...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't get any higher than full liberation.
Do you know what sutta that is? I wanted to reread that, the one with Anapanasati and speaking to the ascetic, and then he goes to the Buddha and goes, yeah, I always said it that way.
I don't remember. I remember the sutta.
Yeah.
Where it actually is, I have no recollection. But to me, one of the quickest ways of finding is like access to insight, and just go to Anathapindika, and then you get a bunch of suttas where Anathapindika is mentioned, and That's certainly in the, let's say, favorite hits of Anathapindika.
You could also find it in the Book of Great Disciples. There's a whole section on it.
Yeah, I'm not going on the internet, so that might. I'll use that one. Thank you.
Yeah, Book of Great Disciples is a compilation, because sometimes of course it's it's either that or you just go to okay, try the Majjhima, not there,
That's what I was doing.
go to the Samyutta,
Sometimes the index in the back of the Buddhi, sometimes the index of subject matter, if you can get the subject matter, sometimes you hit a home run.
Yeah, exactly, but you've got to get the right book. Okay, so.
It's half the fun.
Yeah. Sometimes. Well, the thing is that sometimes as part of the fun of researching things is coming up with gems that you weren't looking for.
It seemed to make sense to me how to think about how to contemplate cessation in solitude. Dispassion in solitude. I was wondering if you have any thoughts about how to apply cessation to the practice on a practical level. Okay.
Well, I think just recognizing that everything actually does have an end, and like really paying attention to the end, the experiential end of the breath, the experiential end of a particular thought, especially when you're getting obsessed with a particular thought, and then sort of, okay, can I pay attention to this as a permanent thought? And then you realize a little while later that you're thinking about something else, and you're I missed the cessation of that. And then, and sometimes you will catch it. And so, okay, and there's either that or it just goes into a sense of openness or spaciousness. And so, okay, yeah, there was an end. There was a cessation. So it's not to make it too esoteric. Because sometimes Nirodha is, quite rightly, sort of taken as a synonym for Nibbana. So, okay, I'm going to sit here and experience Nibbana. Well, no, I mean, it's a bit ambitious. I mean, it's a great thought, but...
I was thinking of more in terms of what you were saying, that all the conditioned things cease and then the things not, Nirodha is Nibbana.
Yeah.
How should we interpret suttas like the one we just read, where there's kind of this chain of things? One develops the three, develops the four, develops the seven. Is it that you just kind of are meant to focus on the first, and this is more of a way of analyzing what you're doing and saying, by doing this one, you're actually doing these three, or is it that?
Yeah, I would. The way I tend to approach it is not so much in a sequential, locked-in sequential way, but that by integrating one, you're opening doors to another. That's how I personally approach it, and I think my own preference or bias is that that's more useful.